Hello, welcome to my tier list video. Today I'm going to be ranking some of my favorite and least favorite ways to wear goggles. I guess if we want to establish kind of like a baseline, we should talk about the goggles under versus goggles over thing. I think it's a really stupid debate, but people love to talk about it, so let me just do this real quick. Obviously, goggles under is like the preferred method in the park, but goggles over is coming back. It's becoming more popular. Like Simon Duma back in the day used to rock it. He looked pretty good, but I'll explain that later. I think the resurgence it's kind of been having started in the snowboard scene. I saw a lot of contest snowboarders doing this, and it's leaked a little bit into skiing. What I was trying to say earlier is when you wear your goggles over, your head ends up getting a little bigger. And unless you're wearing like pretty baggy clothes, it sometimes looks kind of funny. But I mean, some people can pull it off, but Simon pulled it off really well just because, 4XL. Obviously, from a convenience perspective, goggles over is a little more convenient just because, you can take your goggles on and off super easily, stick them on your forehead, whatever. Comfort wise, I prefer goggles under for comfort. Feels better on my nose, but people argue both sides. It's kind of a personal thing.
That hurts my nose.
You look so much better already.
Hurts my nose.
I don't care if it hurts your nose. Your nose will get used to it.
And then, of course, looks. Goggles under is probably the safest choice you can do. Like, there's a reason everybody does it. It looks good. It's that simple. It looks good. A tier. Boom. And I mean, goggles over, like, there's a lot of benefits to wearing your goggles over top, but at the end of the day,
Style over comfort, always.
it looks bad. Okay, moving on, we have goggles backwards on a helmet. This trend, I'd say, is one of the most prevalent post Golden Age looks. The furthest back I can think seeing this is Henrik in the 2013 X Games. Obviously, that kind of blew it up. You had all the kids wearing it, and you still have all the kids wearing it every single year after X Games goes down. It's a yearly thing, it's a seasonal thing. It is very convenient. Like, if I'm like hiking a rail or if I'm just doing laps and I don't want to run back to my car to put my goggles away, I'll just stick them on my head. I do think it's kind of overplayed though. I'd say it's a B tier pick. It's all right, but don't do it all the time. Okay, a bit of a throwback. We have wearing the goggles like around the neck. This is something I used to see Ahmed do. If I'm being honest, he makes it look pretty good. The main issue I have with doing this is it's really uncomfortable. Like, I remember trying it a couple years back. I was hiking. I just threw my goggles like around my neck. First of all, your breath fogs up the goggles and it just feels disgusting. They're also like kind of rubbing your neck area and like they're sitting right like it doesn't look like it's kind of in his face, but in reality, like if you're wearing your goggles around your neck like that, it basically feels like you're wearing like a chin guard. It's just way up in your face and it does not feel nice at all. Again, like also if you're doing a trick and you have your goggles dangling around your neck, they're gonna come hit you in the face. It's like wearing a chain. You have a giant dangling part right in the front. Smack your face over and over again. So practicality wise, it's pretty awful. Looks wise, like it's not bad, but it's really a dated look. I wouldn't be upset if this came back a little bit, but for me, like it's kind of questionable. All right, next up, I guess we'll rate wearing just goggles on their own with no helmet. So like I don't really care if it's like a hat, a hood. I'm gonna put it in the S tier, and here's why. A lot of people will say that like they prefer the look of goggles without a helmet. They just think it looks better. But for me, I grew up like everyone wearing a helmet, so I'm used to seeing it both ways. A lot of people can pull off a helmet really well with goggles. Sometimes even the helmet will make the fit look better. The reason I'm putting it in S tier is because it is so much easier to look good. The problem with wearing a helmet with goggles underneath is that like everything has to fit well. You have to worry about your goggles being perfectly like shaped to work with your helmet. You have to worry about, oh, is my hat too big? I'm gonna have a huge Am I gonna have a huge gap? Like, is everything gonna flop around? If you're just wearing goggles, like you don't have to worry about that. Everything's basically set for you. It's super easy, super convenient. S tier. Boom. Okay, the next two are kind of related. We've got Goggles kind of up on the forehead with a helmet and without a helmet. Um, if you're doing this with a helmet, I think again it looks pretty bad. Some people, however, can pull this off really well. Like we got Mac right here. He makes this look pretty good, but again, like he has a very unique style. Most people just can't pull this off. Uh I'm gonna put this in the bad tier. Unless unless that's really your thing and you can make it look good, it just looks bad. And then same thing but with no helmet. Again, I can't justify being in the S tier just because it reminds me too much of this one. Uh maybe bump it. Nah, we're gonna put that in the B tier.
Kiss for your song. You're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead and
We've also got this, but you've got the goggles backwards. I think it looks a little bit better than like having them on your forehead, mostly because it's more mimicking this one rather than this one. Uh, Seeing this in like one or two clips in your edit doesn't really bother me, or even if it's like a full like I don't know 2 minute edit and you're doing this, I think that's like acceptable. I even think that's good. Like do that. It looks pretty good. But if this is again like a full-time thing, I'm sorry, you're just trying too hard. We'll go with like bottom of the A tier. Okay, next up we have wearing your goggles backwards as a blindfold. Um, okay, this one's kind of similar to the backwards goggles, no helmet. We have the sideways goggles, no helmet. Again, maybe one clip, two clips doing this. Like, okay, that's cool. Kind of reminds me of that Yuto clip in his Thrasher, Please Give Me Skater of the Year part, where he's wearing that ski mask. If you do this in like more than 3 clips, or if you've even got like an edit of you doing this, or like multiple clips in separate parts, you're trying too hard. Questionable. Probably less questionable than like wearing goggles around your neck, but still pretty questionable. Okay, next up we have no goggles. This one you do see it like a lot in the East, you know. Kids don't really bother with goggles. You don't have that much wind. It's usually not that cold, or even if it is cold, like you're not skiing at 50 miles an hour. You don't really need the goggles. So I'd say for the most part, it looks really good. If you're just wearing a beanie underneath, if you're just wearing a helmet, some helmets it does look weird with, but for the most part, wearing no goggles is a solid pick. So we're just going to leave that in the S tier. The main things with no goggles is it is so convenient not having to deal with goggles, and it's one less thing to worry about. The only downside, of course, is you don't have the benefits that come with wearing goggles, so like wind protection, sun protection. But no goggles is more of a situational thing. So if you do have the option to wear no goggles, I do think like we're just gonna leave it up here. It's an S tier choice. Okay, this is a bit of a weird one. We've got wearing your goggles sagged versus unsagged. Now, I know this is quite the tough choice. I think some people might whine about, you know, oh, goggles sagged hurts my nose too much.
Sag your goggles, please.
Makes your nose probably look like 2 to 3 inches longer than it actually is, and it looks bad. Like it looks more than bad. It's just awful. Now, for placing the sagged goggles, I think the main thing we need to keep in mind is it might hurt your nose, but again,
Style over comfort.
goggle sag is a must. Okay, we have these like weird kind of goggle helmet hybrids. I'm not really sure where I want to place this one. I mean, the comfort like is pretty up there. Like you really can't get more comfortable than having your goggles attached to your helmet. And I mean, style wise, like it's not bad. It's not bad. Like I think high A tier pick. High A tier. All right, final two we have goggles under the helmet but lifted.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
That is what I feel when I walk over here beneath the big balls.
Under the helmet but lifted as like full time. This is like a thing that you do on the regular. You actually ride like this. It's kind of weird. It mostly depends on your setup, like comfort wise. I had one helmet goggle setup where this was like super comfy. I actually considered just riding like this sometimes if I didn't want to be wearing my goggles. But the other setup I had, it would crush my face. I felt like my face was melting. My eyebrows were being like forced into my eyeballs. It was not comfortable at all. So it mostly depends on whether or not you find this comfortable. I don't really see why you would want to do this though. If you're gonna wear a helmet, but have it so far back on your head that there's like a space formed between the top of your head and like the roof of your helmet, it's not doing anything. You might as well just take it off and ride kind of like this with your goggles just sitting on your forehead. Overall, I don't really get it. It kind of just looks like you're trying too hard. This is definitely like low questionable. This is borderline bad. And finally, we have wearing your goggles like a choker or a gag. I was really considering not discussing this one, but this girl in the stock photo really reminded me of another skier. That would be ABM. And while I was looking for photos to prove my point, I noticed that one of the top searches was ABM's sister. She has an MBA. She has a house. So that's my tier list. Again, this wasn't meant to offend anyone, make anyone upset. And if you think I missed anything, just leave a comment, let me know. And I'll probably be dropping more content sometime